I'm Matt Krieger with Krieger Analytics. I talk to hundreds of small business owners a year, and all of them want three things. They want to increase their sales, increase their profitability, and decrease the stress and complexity with their business. I'm going to tell you a couple stories about clients that we've worked with and how you can implement some of the things that we do to do those exact three things. The first client I'm going to tell you about is a beverage manufacturer, and they have an awesome product. I was aware of them before I went out there, and when we started working with them a little bit over a year ago, I was extremely excited. And sitting down and talking with the owner, it was very clear there was not a lot of organizational alignment. And let me tell you what I mean by that. When Krieger Analytics works with any client, this is the first thing we do. We set up this simple structure where we have a CEO and we want one person in charge of our sales and marketing, our operations, and our finance. When we do that, also we get alignment and clarity within the organization. In other words, we have one person that knows what their focus is, and that's sales and marketing. Another one with operations and another one with finance. Now, in a small business, the CEO often is going to head up one of these as well, right? So in this instance, our CEO is heading up the sales and marketing process. We identified somebody to head up the operations process and somebody to head up the finance process. That became our management team. With that team, for the first 30 days, we started establishing our strategy. And what does that mean? We put goals in place and we put specific objectives that needed to be accomplished in order to achieve those goals. So let's talk about what a couple of those objectives were. The first one I want to talk to you is the cash conversion process. Now, every business has one, and this is extremely important for manufacturers. And let me explain what this is. On day one, the manufacturer receives their inventory. Now, they're often given terms, right? So for instance, this manufacturer specifically was given 30-day terms, and they were typically paying within that 30 days. Now, this manufacturer had an inventory problem, right? They had too much inventory on hand. They had 110 days of inventory on hand, which means at 110 days, that's when they sold their inventory. Now, their vendors were a little bit larger distributors, and so they often wouldn't get paid until 45 days after that. So add all that up, that's 155 days. 155 days where they had to finance rent, payroll, and everything else in operations. Not only that, but they had to pay for the inventory at 30 days. So they had to finance 125 days of purchasing this inventory and not receiving cash for that inventory. And this is a real problem with businesses. Now, what's the impact of this? Well, the impact of this is on cash flow. In other words, our working capital is less than it could be if we shorten this cycle up. We also have financing costs, right? Somehow you have to finance this. Whether it's with your money or with a bank's money, there's a financing cost related to financing this period of time. So, what did we start to do? Well, the first thing we started to do is we went out and talked with our vendors and we explained this process, right? We explained that, hey, we're not getting paid until out here. We need a little bit of help bridging this gap. And they worked with us. They were willing to work with us because we said, hey, we're committed to you. We want to work with you, but here's how this has to be. So we were able to extend this out to 45 days. Now, the biggest problem we had was inventory. We can't have 110 days worth of inventory in hand. That might work in some industries, but in this one, our lead times aren't that long. Our raw materials aren't that raw. In other words, we can find them. And so we were able to shorten this process. Our manufacturing process wasn't that long. There's a lot of variables that go into that. We targeted 60 days on hand. 5 months later, we were able to hit that target. So all of a sudden now, we were able to sell this inventory around day 60, not day 110. So we paid for it at 45, we sold it at 60. We went back out to our vendors and we said, we're doing new terms. We're doing 30-day terms, okay? We knew who they were selling it to. We knew that this inventory was off the shelves within 30 days. There's no reason that we shouldn't be able to be paid within that 30 days. So at day 90 now, all of a sudden, we were getting paid. So before, where we were having to pay for the inventory on day 30 and get paid for it on day 125, that's 125 days that we had to cover. Now we were paying for that inventory on day 45 and getting paid for it on day 90, 45 days. We shaved off 80 days. What did that translate into? $60,000 of excess working capital that we were able to bring in. That also saved us tens of thousands of dollars in financing costs of the year. So this was huge. Now here's the most exciting thing. I told you about this process. I'm going to tell you about the process we did with the sales and marketing side of this organization. So we helped them put in a process to help them identify and track prospects. Now, we didn't identify the prospects for them. We didn't put their sales messaging together. We didn't put their collateral together, any of that. We helped them on some pricing and some things like that, but we helped them with the process. So what was the result of that? What was the result of having a process in place? Well, this last Q1 in 2021, we saw a 75% increase over the previous Q1, actually 2019 Q1. Now, what did we see April to April? Now remember, last April was COVID, and this is a beverage manufacturer, so that's probably not a fair comparison. So we look back at April 2019. April 2019 to this April, we're up 200%. Now, I can't tell you that there was this amazing thing that we did other than put a process in place. We put this structure in place, we fixed this cash conversion cycle, and we helped the sales and marketing team identify and track their prospects through a process. Doing those things alone has drastically increased the value for this business by increasing sales, increasing profitability, and best of all, the owner can sleep better at night because we've decreased the chaos and we've decreased the complexity of the business. Let's talk about another client. The second client I want to talk to you about is a refuse company. So this is a trash company. Now, the trash business doesn't get a lot of terms from their vendors. And why? Because their vendors are often fuel vendors, employees, landfills. And so a lot of those expenses have to be paid right when they occur. So on day one, when your trash occurs, typically payroll, landfill fees, gasoline, that all has to be paid either on that day or within 2 weeks of when that's picked up. Now, once that's picked up, this client was billing their customers 30 days after that occurred. Now, these are typically small business and personal customers, and so they were typically paying 40 days after. So total cash conversion cycle was 70 days. Now, we're talking about $1 million that needs to be financed over this period of time. So what did we do? Well, the first thing that we identified was this can't happen. We have to be billing customers much more in real time. So we were able to look at the software that was in place and be able to put processes in place that billed our customers 3 days after collection. The next thing we did is we started converting our customers over to autopay, and we offered them some incentives to do this. But essentially what that did is that cut our collection period from 40 days down to just 20 days. So all of a sudden, this cycle that used to take 70 days was now taking 23 days. That's a 47-day savings. So think about that. That's 47 less days where you have to finance $1 million. Now, what did this do? Well, this February compared to the February last year, we were able to increase our working capital by over $250,000. Think about that. That's $250,000 on the balance sheet that you didn't have last year at this time. We didn't increase sales, we didn't increase profitability, we just merely played with this cash conversion cycle in order to increase cash. Let's talk about one last client. The last client I want to talk to you about is a livestock manufacturing client. So this client, when they took over, knew that the financial statements had some issues. When we got out there, the cost of goods sold made no sense. Why? Because when we started digging into it, they weren't costing their inventory. In other words, they had no idea what this number should actually be. Over the next 30 days, we spent a lot of time figuring out what was the true COGS number. When we did that, we ran into a big issue. They were having a huge amount of waste. When we started talking to the operations team about that, we were able to identify a different method where they could use some of the items that were wasted in their current manufacturing process, which saved us 5% on our margins. Just by having these reporting tools in place and being able to figure out what the correct value was for the inventory, we were automatically able to save 5% for this owner that went straight to the bottom line. The next thing we looked into was the biggest operating expense, which happened to be payroll. Let me explain this business to you. This is January, this is December. Now, this business goes like this. In other words, the middle of their year, starting here in about May, all the way through September, was their down season. However, they had to have a total of 45 employees in order to operate at this level. Here in the summer, they only needed 20. So they had these 45 employees that they ended up keeping on all year, which means we had all this excess capacity here and all this excess expense. So we sat down and we worked with them, their accounting folks, their operating folks, and also the people in HR. And we were able to identify 35 key employees that needed to stay on all year. We also identified a plan that enabled us to fill in this with temporary help and put employee benefits in place that would be able to be utilized during the summer. So what were we able to do? We were able to reduce their employee costs by over 15%. Now, again, that might not seem like a big number, but when you're talking about $100,000 of payroll in a given month, you're talking about $15,000 that gets saved to the bottom line. So all of a sudden we start talking about big numbers where the owner is taking home $15,000 to $20,000 more per month just because we were able to institute a couple of these simple policies. Now, Krieger Analytics didn't come up with all these ideas, but what we did is facilitate a process where the team was able to identify the issue and work through the issue to come up with a solution. And that's what Krieger Analytics does. I am passionate about what we do here at Krieger Analytics. One of the reasons why is I used to be a small business owner. I ran $1 million franchise company. I know how lonely it is to make decisions. I know how hard it is not to have a full management team. And so when I founded Krieger Analytics, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to provide business owners with a management team and a management tool to help their business be more successful and their life to be less chaotic. We put processes around strategy, forecasting, reporting, and bookkeeping. I think that these methods and these processes are key to helping you increase sales, increase profitability, and reducing the overall stress and chaos in your life. Like I said, I've been in your shoes, and I want to help you. Whether you use Krieger Analytics or not, I think that these processes are key to helping you drive your business and drive the value of your business. I'd love to talk to you. Fill out the form here below this video. Otherwise, if not, I hope I helped you out a little bit. Thank you.